1 year ago yesterday, the Russian invasion, which began in 2014, escalated dramatically when Vladimir Putin's criminal army crossed the Ukrainian frontier and began a war of aggression that has killed tens and tens of thousands of the Ukrainian people and seen thousands of children go missing in the East in scenes reminiscent of the horrors of the Second World War from 80 years ago. During those early days of Russia's war of illegal aggression against Ukraine, the world watched and the world waited for Ukraine to fall. The United States government offered the Ukrainian President Zelensky an opportunity for evacuation. President Zelensky responded. He said, "I don't need a ride. I need ammunition." And the ammunition has flowed, and the Ukrainian forces have held. And they have inflicted already a profound strategic defeat on the Russian bear. But it is that wounded bear who is more dangerous than ever. Yesterday was a day that saw the danger grow in the world. And at the year point of the anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it is time to take stock. The world is profoundly more dangerous than it was a year ago. And it seems to be spinning faster and faster and faster. The American people became familiar with the Islamic Republic of Iran when it illegally kidnapped hundreds of Americans, ultimately keeping 52 for 444 days. The Islamic Republic of Iran is a global menace, and they have become a supplier of weapons and arms to Russia for their illegal invasion. And they have become one leg of a new type of tripartite pact that exists between Russia, Iran, and ominously China, that seeks to upend the world order that emerged after the Second World War. That war remade the earth. It changed everything. It broke up great powers. It ended empires. And it left the world's youngest republic as its most powerful nation. Franklin Roosevelt foresaw what was to come. The U.S. liberal global order that has maintained free trade, peace, prosperity, and economic opportunity while avoiding the Holocaust of a third world war, which would be humanity's last. It is that American-led liberal global order that Vladimir Putin and President Xi Jinping and the Iranian mullahs seek to destroy. They seek to reorder the world towards their values, towards their autocracies. And it is important to remember that all of these countries, Russia, China, and Iran, disregard basic human rights, human dignity, and human liberty. President Carter made this point in his inaugural speech when he said, America didn't invent human rights, rather, human rights invented America. We are an imperfect nation, but we are more perfect than any nation that has come before. And we are unique and singular, and that is what makes us exceptional. Not the chants of USA, USA mindlessly delivered, but this simple fact. We are the only nation in the history of the world founded upon the power of an idea. That idea is the greatest and most potent in world history. And it has lit the world, the idea that all men and women now are created equal, endowed by a creator with inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the American creed. And the American creed has lifted millions of people, by example, out of terrible oppression all over the world. And it is that global order that Russia, China, and Iran together seek to subvert. When Roosevelt talked about the coming age, he spent an evening in discussions with it with his friend, the Canadian Prime Minister, Mackenzie King. Mackenzie King knew he was in the presence of a global icon, a global statesman, and a world historical figure. And each evening after a discussion with Roosevelt, he would retire and take notes on it. And that night, he recalled what Roosevelt said. He talked about his ambitions, but made clear, nothing lasts forever. He said it was his hope that the American-led order would prevail for as long as everybody who was alive on the day the war was won was still alive. The youngest of those people today are 76 years old. We stand at the hinge of a new era, a dangerous new era, an era of war. Yesterday was one of the most violent days in the Middle East, in Israel, in the West Bank, in over 20 years. It is clear that a third intifada has commenced, triggered and incited by the extremist policies and provocations of Benjamin Netanyahu's extremist government. Yesterday, more American forces arrived in Taiwan. They offer a thin layer of protection from the Chinese. In essence, we are daring the Chinese to make the first move while American forces are in harm's way on an island that is at risk from Chinese invasion. Americans have been mostly immunized from conflict and war, even as the country fought the longest wars in its history since 9/11. An incredibly small percentage of Americans served in harm's way. But North America isn't an island. And should war come between European powers, Iran, China, should inexorably the fate of nations turn towards conflict, North America is not an island, and the technology exists that the American homeland can be hit militarily. The world is growing more dangerous by the hour, and yet we have seen no let-up whatsoever from the MAGA Republican Congress, filled with conspiracy theorists and political extremists who have adopted lock, stock, and barrel the propaganda lines from the Russian government in some cases. There is a new isolationism growing, and it is growing within and from within the MAGA movement. Donald Trump delivered a speech basically celebrating Vladimir Putin, filled with conspiracies, filled with lies, filled with Russian propaganda, citing that the threat to world peace isn't Russia, but rather Ukraine, and specifically America's support of Ukraine. Increasingly, the MAGA movement is taking on fully the trappings of the America First movement of the 1930s, of the Bund. It has embraced an isolationism that isn't just naive, but malignant. It presumes that America is detached and apart from the world while at the same time being the source of every problem, every conflict, and every decision made in every other world capital. It's nonsense. But it is a dangerous philosophy. During the 2 years leading up to World War II, Charles Lindbergh became President Roosevelt's chief antagonist and nemesis. And Roosevelt correctly believed that Lindbergh was a fascist, a Nazi, and that Lindbergh was in essence leading an American fifth column. What Roosevelt understood was that war was going to come. It was inevitable. And the nation needed to be prepared so that it would suffer less and the war would be won faster. Earlier today, Russian commentators made the point that it may be the case that Russia will need to move Poland's borders back towards the West. Of course, Poland is a NATO nation, and an invasion of NATO by Russia would trigger global war, just as the invasion of Poland by Nazi Germany did in 1939. Each day, events are unfolding. Some of those events don't happen in the United States, but will deeply affect the future of the American people. Yet on American television, what plays out is a daily barrage of nonsense, frivolousness, and unseriousness by a loathsome cast of politicians, grifters, and pretenders who are unfit for any type of public responsibility. Almost all of those people are members of the MAGA Republican Party, and they present a profound risk to the safety, security, peace, and prosperity of the American people, but all the people of the world at a most dangerous hour.